Ladies and gentlemen, this is Honor's Place, your one-stop shop for superhero analysis, comedy, and the occasional boxing coverage. Today is the return of How Strong Is, a show where we dive through the on-screen appearances of your favorite fictional friends to determine the level of their strength. Or, as we're doing today, determining their speed. We've covered his strength in the winter, his durability in the summer, and now we close out the unintentional trilogy of Thor coverage by answering the question, just how fast is the MCU's Thor? As we've done a million times before, we need a base feat to work off before we get into the crazier things. And we have a perfect place to start from the opening scene in Thor Ragnarok. Here we see Thor out racing Surtur's dragon, and at the tip of Mjolnir is a funny little cone. For those who don't know, cones like these form after you cross the speed of sound. The speed of sound clocks in at 343 meters per second, or 767 miles per hour. Not to be outdone though, Thor was able to easily keep pace with the Mark 6 Iron Man armor. Previous armors, especially the Mark 4, could exceed speeds of 1500 miles per hour, or 670 meters per second. That's just short of Mach 2, also known as 2 times the speed of sound. It's likely Thor could also keep pace with later armors, but we'll come back to that. While Sokovia was tearing off from the ground, Captain America and Thor were rescuing citizens from cars that were falling off the edge. After the bumper tears off this red car, Thor saves this lady before pulling the entirety of a separate car back to the surface level. Now, the red car falls for about 13 seconds, and we can assume that the second car falls for an additional 6 or 7 seconds, before Thor pulls it back to the surface. Using this equation, d equals 1/2 gt squared, we can determine how far this car fell, and in turn how far Thor had to pull it back up with him. Through this, we find that Thor, while holding this car, covered a distance of 1962 meters in about 12 seconds. Using Thor's hefty weight of 640 pounds, with the additional weight of the 1996 Lancia Y, we can then take that, convert it into kilograms, before finally multiplying the mass by the velocity to get a momentum of 200,755 kilogram meters per second. Now, why did we skip the speed calc and go straight to momentum, you might ask? The simple answer is that through the equation for momentum, mass times velocity, we can use that answer that we just found and divided by Thor's mass to see how fast he would fly by himself. With this method in mind, we find that Thor can casually fly at speeds 690.10 meters per second, ever so slightly faster than the Mark 6 armor. But let's go back to the Iron Man armor comparison. See, Iron Man's Mark 42 armor was able to reach Tony from somewhere in Tennessee, potentially near Nashville, to possibly Miami, Florida in 57 seconds. A normal flight of that distance would take 2 hours and 10 minutes. Therefore, the Mark 42 is roughly 137 times faster than an airplane. The average cruising airspeed for a commercial passenger aircraft that flies long distances is roughly 561 miles per hour, making the Mark 42's top speed nearly 77,000 miles per hour, around Mach 100. While Thor can keep pace with his fellow flying Avengers by himself, it's when Mjolnir is in his grasp that we find Thor's fastest speeds. During the events of Thor the Dark World, Mjolnir soars out of orbit before returning back when Thor calls him. Lowballing the distance Mjolnir had to cover to only be somewhere in the thermosphere, we find that he must have moved roughly 100,000 meters in just 2 seconds. This would put Thor's speed while being pulled off by Mjolnir at 50,000 meters per second. Thor and Thanos have an incredible rivalry over the course of Infinity War and Endgame, one where they do battle several times. Not only do they have a respectable back and forth, but Thor's efforts when fighting the Purple Titan are practically equal to the high-flying, space-dwelling heroine, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel could dodge sniper shots, fly through space, and at the start of Endgame, flew from the Guardian spacecraft down to the surface of Thanos' planet and back. Assuming this getaway planet is similar to Earth, as humans like Captain America and Black Widow were able to breathe without aid, we can use measurements of Earth and its atmosphere for reference in determining how fast she'd have to be moving. The furthest of Earth's atmosphere is about 190 million meters. Seeing as Carol covers the distance twice, going down and then coming back, we can use this distance with her flight time of roughly 27 seconds to find that she can fly as fast as 14,074,074 meters per second. Not quite the 299,800,000 meters per second that is the speed of light, but it is several times faster than the speed of sound, well over Mach 40,000. Oh, and as for the text on the thumbnail, if we agree that Thor can scale to these speeds performed by Captain Marvel, he'd be moving much faster than lightning. In fact, he'd be nearly 117 times faster. So yeah, that's how fast the MCU Thor is. It's nice to be back to calculating the feats of characters again, and I hope you guys are hyped for what's coming down the barrel for the rest of the year. Now, if you'll excuse me, a funny man in a red suit is telling me that Lois is the key, whatever that means.